The sirens blared through the night, echoing the chaos that had shattered Delilah's world. As she stood trembling in the flickering streetlight, she whispered one word that changed everything: Daddy. The officer's face paled, and in that moment he understood the unspeakable betrayal hidden behind closed doors. A secret that had festered for 5 long years, now unmasked in a single breath. With her heart racing, Delilah grasped the officer's sleeve, pleading for justice that felt a lifetime away. My name is Delilah. I am not just a girl. I am the storm that will uncover the truth. The room was thick with tension, the kind that sits heavy in the air and makes it hard to breathe. I could see the shock ripple through my father's eyes, a mixture of anger and pain swirling beneath the surface. And it scared me more than I ever imagined it would. I didn't understand why my heart was pounding so hard, or why I felt a pit growing in my stomach. I just knew that whatever had been lurking in our family's shadows for years was finally coming to light. As I looked around the gathering, my mother's worried face, Mia's furrowed brow, and the murmurs of my relatives who had all been drawn into this chaotic moment, I wondered if they could feel the shift as acutely as I could. It was as if the world had shifted on its axis, and I was the unwitting catalyst for this upheaval. James took a deep breath, visibly trying to collect himself, while I clung to his arm like a lifeline. His gaze flickered from me to the other family members, each of whom wore expressions of confusion or concern, but one person stood out: Uncle Ted. He had always been someone I admired, a former detective with a booming laugh and stories that would wrap us in wonder. But now his face darkened, and I could see the shadows of distrust and disappointment creeping in. I wished I could take back my whispered word, but it was too late. The truth had been set in motion like a rolling stone gathering momentum. "Delilah, we need to talk," James said, his voice steady but laced with an urgency I had never heard before. I felt the weight of the world resting on my small shoulders. I didn't mean to start this avalanche of emotions or bring the family struggles into the open. All I had wanted was a moment of connection with my father, a chance to be seen amidst the chaos of our lives. But now, I felt like a small child standing in the eye of a storm, and I didn't know which way to turn. Mia stepped closer to me, her protective instincts kicking in. She had always been the one to shield me from harsh realities, but now she was grappling with her own confusion. "What did you mean, Delilah?" Her voice was softer now, more like the older sister I looked up to than the one who often seemed distant. I hesitated, the words tangled in my throat. How could I explain what I had felt? The sudden urge to reach out and say something so heavy, so significant? I wanted Daddy to know that I saw what happened at the park, I finally managed. Those words felt so small against the larger truth weighing on us all. The incident at the park had left a mark on our family, a scar that we had tried to ignore but could no longer evade. I had watched it unfold through innocent eyes, too young to comprehend the implications of that day. But now, standing in the middle of this storm, I felt like I had somehow summoned the courage to face it head-on. "What did you see?" James asked, his tone shifting from bewilderment to something more serious. He knelt down so that he was eye level with me, the warmth of his presence somehow both comforting and frightening. The air buzzed with anticipation, the kind that comes before a thunderstorm. I could see the worry in my mother's eyes, the flicker of fear that made my heart ache for her. "I saw the man," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the murmurs. "He was hurting someone, and I didn't know what to do. I thought if I told you, maybe you could help." In that moment, I felt the responsibility of my revelation wash over me. I had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and I feared the chaos that would spill through it. James's face transformed, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't think it was important," I admitted. "I thought it was just something that happened." The burden of my silence had grown heavy, and I now understood that my perception of what was significant had been skewed by my age and innocence. In my heart, I sensed that keeping secrets was not the way to protect my family, but rather a way to ensnare us in a web of lies. Mia stepped in closer, her hand resting on my shoulder like a soft reminder of her presence. "You did the right thing, Delilah. It's important to share what you know," she said, her voice steady, urging me to stand firm even as uncertainty swirled around us. I could see in her eyes that she was fighting her own battles, struggling to reconcile the image she held of our father with the truth that was unfolding before us. Caroline finally broke her silence, the softness of her voice cutting through the tension like a warm breeze on a cold day. "James, we need to figure this out together," she said, her eyes pleading. "If there's something happening that we don't understand, we have to address it. We owe that to our daughters." I watched as my parents exchanged a glance filled with unspoken words, layers of history and hurt woven tightly together. It was a moment of raw honesty, a glimpse into the complexities that lay beneath the surface of our family. I wanted to reach out and hug them both, to bind us together in our shared struggle, but the chasm of secrets and unasked questions loomed larger than ever. "Delilah, can you tell me more about what you saw?" James urged, pulling me back into the conversation. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to untangle the threads of what I had witnessed. This was my moment to step into the light, to be brave like I had always hoped to be. I wanted to help my family heal, but I knew the road ahead would not be easy. With my sister beside me, my parents before me, I began to weave the narrative I had kept locked away. A story of courage that would either bind us together or threaten to tear us apart. In that chaotic moment, I realized that truth was a powerful force, one that could bring justice or wreak havoc. But I was ready, standing on the precipice of discovery, prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As I gathered my thoughts, the weight of my whispered word hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow over the room. My father's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition passing over his features, as if I had unlocked a door to a hidden chamber in his heart. I took a deep breath, the overwhelming mix of fear and determination coursing through me. Mia shifted beside me, her protective instinct bubbling to the surface as she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. I could feel her apprehension radiating through our connection, yet there was an unspoken agreement between us. We were in this together. "Delilah," my father began, his voice strained, "what did you mean by that?" He stepped closer, the familial warmth slowly replaced by an urgency that demanded answers. I looked up at him, searching for the right words that could bridge the chasm that lay between us. I had felt so small for so long, drowning in a sea of adult problems, yet here I was, armed with the truth. "It's about the letters," I finally said, my heart racing. "The ones you've been hiding." My mother, who had been silently observing the exchange, stiffened at the mention of the letters. I could see the flicker of worry in her eyes, an unshed tear threatening to spill over. "I found them in the attic," I continued, my voice stronger than I felt. "I know they're not just bills. They're about something much bigger, aren't they?" James turned to Caroline, a silent conversation passing between them. I could see the tension in my mother's jaw, the way she clenched her fists as if trying to hold back a flood of emotions. "This isn't the time for secrets, Mom," I pressed, my conviction growing. "We need to talk about this. It's tearing us apart." "I thought I could protect you," Caroline finally said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted you to worry about adults' problems. I wanted you to be a child, to enjoy your life." The pain in her voice echoed in my heart, and I realized how much she had sacrificed to shield us from the harsh realities of our situation. Yet, I couldn't shake off the feeling that ignorance was a luxury we could no longer afford. Mia's brow furrowed as she glanced between our parents, her protective nature flaring. "What's in those letters, Dad?" she asked, her tone demanding but laced with concern. "Are they about the money problems? Is that why you've been working so much?" My sister had always been my shield, and in this moment, I could see the vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. James sighed deeply, the weight of his secrets pressing down on him. "It's complicated, girls," he replied, his voice heavy with regret. "Those letters are about cases I worked on before I became a police officer. They're tied to people I once knew, people who did terrible things. I thought I left that life behind when I put on the badge." A chill swept through me. My father, the man I admired, had a past that was tangled in darkness. I glanced at Mia, her expression shifting from confusion to a resolute determination. "We deserve to know the truth, Dad," she said softly, but her eyes were fierce with a protective resolve. "If we're going to get through this, we need to understand everything." With a hesitant nod, James stepped back, gathering his thoughts. "There was a time when I was working undercover," he confessed, his voice laced with the weight of regret. "I got too close to a group involved in corruption. They threatened my life, and that's why I left. But they didn't forget me. The letters, they're from people who still want revenge." I felt a shiver creep down my spine. My father was not just a man in uniform, he was a survivor of a world I couldn't begin to understand. The implications of his past sent shockwaves through my mind. I had always seen him as a protector, but now I realized he had been fighting battles far beyond our doorstep. "So they're after you, even now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just me," he replied, his gaze shifting to Caroline, who stood frozen, her face pale. "They could come after the family if they think they can get to me through you." Fear and anger churned within me as I processed the implications of his words. Our family was at risk, tangled in the consequences of his choices long before I was even born. "What do we do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "How can we keep ourselves safe?" "We're going to face this together," Mia declared, her tone fierce as she took the lead. "We're not going to hide or be afraid. We'll find a way to deal with it." I admired her strength, but the enormity of the situation weighed heavily on my small frame. "Delilah, you have to promise to stay close," James urged, his eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity. "You and Mia must be careful. We need to work as a family." "I promise," I said, feeling a newfound sense of responsibility. I looked at my sister, and we shared a nod of determination, solidifying our bond in this chaotic moment. Caroline finally stepped forward, her voice breaking through the tension. "We will find a way to overcome this, no matter how daunting it seems. This family is strong, and we will fight together." Her words filled me with hope, and as I gazed into my parents' eyes, I knew we were about to embark on a treacherous journey, but we would do it as a united front. As the weight of our truth settled around us, I felt a flicker of warmth within me, a flame ignited by our shared resolve. We had laid bare our struggles, but the battle was just beginning. With newfound purpose, I tightened my grip on Mia's hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead for our family and the secrets that bound us together. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of family, courage, and resilience, please subscribe for more heartfelt stories that explore the depths of love and sacrifice. As I stared into my father's eyes, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination bubbling within me. The weight of what I had just whispered hung in the air like a storm cloud, and for a moment, everything felt frozen. Caroline stood at the edge of the room, her fingers anxiously tapping against her leg, as if she were willing the tension to dissipate. I could sense the clock ticking ominously in the background, each tick a reminder that time was slipping away from us, and I had to act. "Delilah," my father finally said, his voice steady but strained, "we need to talk." He motioned toward the kitchen, and I followed, my heart pounding louder than ever. I could hear Mia's hesitant footsteps behind me, her protective instincts flaring up, but I knew this was my moment. I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be.
Once inside, I turned to face James, who was leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "What did you mean?" he asked, searching my face for answers. "What word?" My mind raced, recalling the whispered confession that had slipped out in the chaos of laughter and conversation, a secret that had festered in the shadows of our family for too long. I took a deep breath and summoned the courage I didn't know I possessed. "Betrayal," I said, my voice firm. "You're hiding something from us, Dad." His expression shifted, a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossing his face before he regained composure. I could see the struggle within him, the battle between wanting to protect his family and the truth that threatened to tear us apart. "I need to know what it is," I pressed, feeling the heat of conviction wash over me. Mia stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "Delilah, maybe you should," she started, but I couldn't let her shield me from this. "No, Mia, I need to know." I turned back to my father, my heart racing as I prepared for the revelation that I feared might change everything. He sighed deeply and glanced toward the window where the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the room. "There are things about my job that I haven't shared," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Things I thought I could protect you from, but that word, it cuts deep, and you deserve the truth." I felt a knot form in my stomach, bracing myself for whatever he was about to divulge. "Years ago, when I first became a police officer, I was involved in a case that went horribly wrong," he began, his gaze fixed on the horizon outside. "I made a choice, one that I thought was for the best. I had to let someone go, someone who was guilty but had connections that made it impossible to convict them." My breath hitched as he spoke, realizing the weight of his words. "It haunts me every day, and now I fear that my silence is coming back to haunt us." Mia looked stunned, her mouth slightly agape as she processed our father's confession. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, confusion, but also an aching sympathy for the burden he bore. "Why didn't you tell us? Why hide it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Don't you think we deserve to know?" James turned his gaze to me, and for the first time, I could see the pain in his eyes. "I thought I was protecting you. I didn't want you to carry the weight of my past, but I realize now that my silence has only caused more harm." His admission hung in the air like a heavy fog, and I could see the regret etched into the lines of his face. "Does Mom know?" I asked hesitantly, unsure if I wanted to hear the answer. He shook his head slowly, and I could see the guilt twisting in his stomach. "She has no idea about the extent of it. I thought I could shield her from it, but now I see I've only made things worse." The reality of our situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. My father, the man I looked up to, was not just a protector, but also a man burdened by choices that had scarred our family long before I was even born. "What do we do now?" I asked, feeling the fragility of our family unit more than ever. "We have to confront this together," he replied, his voice firming with resolve. "I need to make things right, even if it means exposing the darkness I've kept hidden." His determination sparked a glimmer of hope within me. Maybe, just maybe, confronting the shadows of our past would lead us to a brighter future. Mia stepped closer to me, wrapping her arm around my shoulders, her presence a comforting reminder that I was not alone in this fight. "We'll face it together, Dad," she said, her voice steady. "You don't have to do this on your own." The weight of our family's struggles pressed against my chest, but I felt a newfound strength rising within me. There was a long road ahead, filled with uncertainty, but I knew we had to take the first steps toward healing, no matter how daunting they might be. "We need to talk to Mom," I said, my heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. The truth would be hard, but it was time we all faced the consequences of silence. With a nod from my father and a squeeze from Mia, we stepped out of the kitchen, ready to confront the reality that awaited us. As I approached Caroline, I could feel the tremors of anxiety ripple through me, but alongside it surged an unshakable determination. Together, we would face whatever came next, one step at a time. As I approached my mother, her gaze lifted from the floor, revealing a mixture of worry and resolve. I could see the weight of our family's struggles etched into her features, the way her brow furrowed and her lips pursed tightly. I wanted to reach out and reassure her, to tell her that I was ready to help, but instead I felt a lump in my throat, the gravity of everything hanging between us like an unspoken promise. "Mom," I said softly, trying to find the right words, "we need to talk about Dad." Her expression shifted, and I could almost see the gears turning in her mind. She swallowed hard, bracing herself for whatever was to come. Caroline took a deep breath and nodded slowly, as if preparing to dive into a turbulent sea. "I know, Delilah," she finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not." I could see the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, and it made me feel more courageous. I stepped closer, my heart racing as I considered how to bring up the whispers I had heard that night, the fear that had crept in like shadows in a dimly lit room. "We need to find out what's really happening with Dad," I pressed on, my voice steadying with each word. "There are things he's not telling us." Caroline looked at me, a mix of appreciation and sorrow in her gaze. "I don't want you to carry this burden, sweetheart," she said gently. "You're still so young. I should be protecting you." "But I want to help," I insisted, feeling the urgency of our situation push me forward. "If we don't do this together, we might lose him, Mom." Caroline closed her eyes for a moment, as if weighing the enormity of my words. She exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a bit. "You're right, Delilah," she finally said. "We deserve the truth." The resolve in her tone made me feel a spark of hope. Perhaps this was the first step toward mending our fractured family. Meanwhile, Mia hovered nearby, listening with an intensity that made me glance her way. Despite the distance she often placed between herself and the rest of us, I could sense her protective instincts flaring up. She stepped forward, her voice firm yet cautious. "What do you think we should do?" Mia asked, her eyes flickering between my mother and me. "If Dad is involved in something dangerous, we need a plan." I could tell Mia was feeling the weight of our father's secret too. "Maybe we can start by talking to him," I suggested, my mind racing with possibilities. "He trusts us, right? If we approach him carefully, we might get him to open up." Caroline frowned slightly, clearly torn. "I don't want to put you two in a position where he feels cornered," she said, her voice laced with concern. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "this is about more than just Dad. It's about us and how we keep each other safe." My words seemed to resonate as Caroline's expression shifted from doubt to understanding. "You're incredibly brave, Delilah," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "I just wish it didn't have to come to this." After a brief silence, Mia nodded, taking charge as she often did. "Let's prepare for this," she said, her demeanor shifting into protective mode. "We'll approach him tonight when he gets home. We can all be together, and we can make sure we're ready for anything." I felt a swell of gratitude towards my sister. Despite her distance, she was always there when it mattered most. We spent the next few hours in a tense silence, our minds racing with the uncertainties ahead. The clock ticked away, each second echoing in the quiet house like a countdown to some impending confrontation. I kept imagining how it would feel to finally ask Dad the questions that had been gnawing at me. Would he get angry? Would he deny everything? Or would he finally let us in? When James finally walked through the door, the air shifted, heavy with anticipation. His uniform seemed to carry the weight of the world, and I noticed the way his eyes flickered over us, searching for something, reassurance perhaps, or an escape from the reality he had created. "Hey everyone," he said, attempting a cheerful tone, but I could hear the tiredness beneath it. The sight of him stirred something inside me, a mix of love and dread. As we settled around the dining table, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken words. I could see Mia's fingers tapping nervously against the wood, and Caroline's eyes darted between us and our father. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice steady but quieter than I had intended. He looked at me, a smile creeping onto his face, but it was fleeting. "Just the usual," he replied, but I sensed the unease bubbling beneath his calm facade. This was our chance, and the three of us needed to seize it. I glanced at Mia, who nodded imperceptibly, and Caroline's eyes met mine, conveying a silent understanding. As I took a deep breath, the words I had rehearsed in my mind spilled out. "Dad, there's something we need to talk about. It's important." His expression shifted instantly, the smile fading as concern etched itself across his features. "What is it, Delilah?" he asked, his voice suddenly cautious. In that moment, I felt a rush of determination. It was time for the truth, no matter what it might reveal. I took another steadying breath, aware of the weight of my words hanging in the air between us. I overheard some things at the gathering, about you, about us. I could see his eyes narrowing, processing my statement while the chaos of the family reunion continued around us. Laughter and chatter faded into a muffled background hum. And all that mattered was the shared space between me and my father. I felt the urgency rising inside me, like the tide pulling at the shore. "I think you're hiding something, Dad. Something that could change everything." He ran a hand through his hair, an old habit of his that always hinted at his unease. "Delilah, you have to understand," he began, but I wouldn't let him off the hook that easily. I needed answers, not excuses. "Mom is stressed about money, and Mia is acting weird about you lately. It's like there's this cloud hanging over us, and I don't want to pretend anymore." I stood firm, my little fists balled by my sides, ready to fight for the truth. The tremors in my voice only reinforced my determination. I need to know what's going on. James shifted his weight, glancing around as if he might spot someone eavesdropping. "This isn't the time or place, sweetheart," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But I could see the fear flickering in his eyes. And that only fueled my resolve. "Then when?" I countered, my heart racing as I felt the adrenaline course through my veins. "Are you going to wait until it gets worse, until we're all too far gone to fix it?" My words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. I could sense the battle within him, torn between protecting me and revealing the truth he'd buried deep. "Delilah," he began, the weight of his tone suggesting the years of hidden burdens he carried. I noticed how his gaze turned distant, lost in memories I couldn't comprehend. "I've made choices, decisions that I thought would keep you safe, but they come with costs. There are parts of my past that I'm not proud of." I leaned closer, my curiosity igniting. "What do you mean? What did you do?" I pressed, the urge to pull at the threads of his story overwhelming. He hesitated, his face a mix of regret and sorrow. "When I was a young officer, I encountered things that changed me. People I trusted, they weren't what they seemed. I made mistakes. I thought I could leave it all behind, but the past has a way of catching up with you." My mind raced. The mention of his past filled me with questions. Is that why Mom is always worried? Is that why Mia is distant? He nodded slowly, his expression pained. "It's complicated. Your mother deserves the truth, but I didn't want you girls to carry the burden of what happened. I thought I could protect you by keeping it a secret." "But it's not just your secret, is it? It's ours too," I exclaimed, the injustice of it all surging through me. "You can't just keep us in the dark. We're family. We're supposed to face things together." At that moment, I could see him wrestling with the weight of my words. He opened his mouth, as if to argue, but then closed it again, defeated. "I thought I could shield you. I was wrong." My heart sank at the realization that he had been trying to protect us, but in doing so, had built walls around us. "What are you going to do now?" I asked.
my voice trembling with the gravity of the situation. "I need to come clean to your mother. It's time to stop hiding," he said, determination flickering in his eyes. I felt a surge of hope within me. Perhaps this was the first step toward healing the fractures that had formed in our family. But what if it breaks everything apart? I worried aloud. He shook his head. It might, but sometimes things have to fall apart to be rebuilt stronger. It's better than living with the shadows of lies. Before I could respond, Mia appeared at the edge of the room, her expression unreadable as she watched us closely. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice holding a note of suspicion. "Just a conversation," James replied, but I could see the tension tightening his jaw. It was as if Mia sensed the shift in the air, the electric current of truth that had just been unleashed. "Dad, do you think she knows?" I whispered, my heart racing again. James sighed, glancing back at Mia with a mixture of concern and fear. "She may not know everything, but she knows something is off." Mia stepped forward, her protective instincts kicking in. "Delilah, what are you hiding? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath, debating whether to tell her what I had just learned. "Mia, it's not about hiding, it's about understanding." The words were barely out of my mouth when Caroline entered the room, her face flushed with anxiety. "What's happening? I heard you all talking," she said, her eyes darting around as she assessed the situation. James and I exchanged a glance, the urgency of the moment thickening the air between us. "I think it's time we talk," he said, his voice steady. I could feel a storm brewing, and while fear washed over me, I also felt something else, an unshakable sense that this moment could change everything. As James prepared to share the truth with Caroline, I whispered a silent plea for strength. Whatever happened next would redefine our family, and the courage we showed could either shatter us or bind us closer than ever. After all, we were family. We had to face the truth together, no matter how painful it might be. I knew that if we could share our stories, we might find a way through the darkness into the light. If you have a story that resonates with the struggles of family, secrets, and the pursuit of truth, I invite you to share it. Your experiences could help others navigate their own journeys. As I stood there, the room still echoing with the tension that had just erupted, I felt the weight of every unspoken word hanging heavy in the air. My heart raced as I glanced at my father, his face a mask of shock and uncertainty. It was like I had thrown a stone into still water, and the ripples were threatening to pull us all under. Caroline's eyes glistened with unshed tears, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the table. I could sense the turmoil brewing inside her, a mix of fear and anger that was just waiting to spill over. Mia, standing a few steps behind me, had her arms crossed tightly, her expression a blend of confusion and concern. She was always the strong one, the one who took on the role of protector, but in that moment, I could see the cracks in her armor. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I wanted to bridge the gap that had formed between us all, but I didn't know how. "Dad, please," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to cause a scene. I just thought maybe you could explain." The words tumbled out, laced with desperation. I needed him to talk, to share whatever had been gnawing at him. The silence that followed was deafening, stretching out like a vast chasm between us. James shifted, glancing at Caroline as if seeking permission to reveal what lay beneath the surface. I could see the internal battle waging within him, a struggle between protecting his family and laying bare the truth that had haunted him. "Delilah, some things are complicated," he finally said, his voice low and steady. "There are parts of my past that I never wanted you or your sister to know." "But you told me that honesty is important," I shot back, my frustration bubbling over. "If we want to be a family, we need to be honest with each other." Mia stepped forward, her protective instincts kicking in. "Maybe it's not that simple, Delilah. Some truths can hurt more than they help." She looked at our father, her expression softening.
Dad, if you think you can tell us, we're ready to listen. The room felt charged with an electric urgency, and I could hardly breathe as I waited for him to continue. James took a deep breath, as if preparing himself for a long journey. When I first joined the police force, he began, I was naive. I thought I could change the world, but it's not that easy. There are things I did, things I saw, that haunt me every day. I thought I could leave it behind, but the shadows have followed me. What kind of things? I pressed, desperate for clarity. Things that involved people I trusted, friends who made choices that put innocence at risk. I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you that sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and not every choice is black and white. Caroline interjected, her voice shaking slightly. James, please don't. You don't have to do this now, not in front of the girls. No, he replied firmly, his eyes locking onto mine. They deserve to know who I am, all of me. I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me, anger, confusion, and a flicker of understanding. So you were part of something wrong? Something that could hurt people? My voice trembled as I tried to process his words. He nodded, looking as if the admission weighed heavier than any burden he had ever carried. It wasn't my intention. I wanted to protect the community, but sometimes the system fails. I was part of the problem without realizing it. Mia moved closer to me, her presence a comforting reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Dad, what happened? She asked, her voice gentle yet firm. James hesitated, the pain in his eyes unmistakable. There was a case, a series of mistakes. I was involved in a sting operation that went wrong. Innocent people were caught in the crossfire, and I had to make a choice between loyalty to my team and what was right. I chose loyalty, and it cost me. It cost others. The enormity of his revelation hit me like a tidal wave. I never imagined my father, the man who always seemed so invincible, could be so flawed. Did you ever try to make it right? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I tried, Delilah. I really did. But the damage was done, and I was too far in to just walk away. That's why I became a police officer, to atone for my past, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Caroline's expression shifted from concern to a profound sadness, and I felt a pang of sympathy for her. I thought you were doing it for us, she murmured, her voice breaking. I thought you wanted to make a better life for our family. James reached out to take her hand, a gesture that seemed to speak volumes about their shared pain. I wanted to, and I still want that. But I need you to understand that I'm not perfect. I have made mistakes that have shaped me. In that moment, I realized that the truth, however painful, was a step toward healing. Our family had been fractured, but perhaps now, with all the secrets laid bare, we could begin to rebuild. I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me, the idea that we could rise from the ashes of our past. I don't want to lose you, Dad, I said, my voice trembling as tears threatened to spill. I just want us to be a family, even if it's messy. James's expression softened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of relief in his eyes. We'll figure it out together, Delilah, I promise. As we all stood there, the weight of unspoken burdens beginning to lift, I sensed that this was just the beginning of our journey, a journey toward understanding, forgiveness, and hopefully healing.